What's up, Stitches? My name is Smikle and welcome to or back to my YouTube channel. We've all seen the memes, the beautiful, iconic, wondrous memes of Bernie, and people have really taken like 3 photographs and ran with them. Bernie memes are, they're good, they made me laugh, they made me chuckle. And as viewers of this channel know, I love a good meme, so I couldn't resist recreating the meme. So this video is basically an elaborate ploy to be able to recreate a meme in lockdown, because what else can you do except knit memes and send them to your loved ones? So that's what I'm showing you in this video. I'm showing you how to make a meme. This video is a bit different than the one I was expecting it to be. I was planning a special video for you guys, but that's now going to be out next week because I was far too excited to not knit these Bernie Sanders mittens. I've got a few amendments that I've made to the pattern, but there is a free pattern in the description designed by the wonderful Alco Knits. So if you want to knit one of these for yourself, go get that pattern. It's available on Ravelry and Payhip if Ravelry is not accessible to you. But in this video I'm just going to show you basically how I made it, what amendments I made, and that sort of thing. So if you like that sort of thing, do give me a like. And if you want to support this channel, then check out my Patreon, but more of that later in the video. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first amendment I made to the pattern is that I sized up the needles by 3 sizes. I went up 3 sizes on the needles because the pattern is designed for small to medium female sized hands, so generally just like smaller hands. And I knit these mittens for my partner who has extra large hands. His hands are probably like an inch bigger than my hands in every way, and I have pretty big hands. So I definitely had to size up, and it ended up being a perfect fit. Secondly, I did a tubular cast on. The pattern called for just like any cast on, and then 2x2 ribbing. But I wanted to do a tubular and then a 1x1 ribbing. If I'm honest, I was scared that these would be slightly too small, so I wanted to make sure that the cuff was extra stretchy so that he could fit his hands in there nice, and it ended up working out well. Third thing I did differently, the pattern calls for using double pointed needles. I just used my circular needles and used the magic loop method, so I didn't have to worry about all of that because I don't like double pointed needles. Another thing about this pattern is it doesn't mirror the gloves exactly, because obviously, as you see, Bernie has like kind of blue palm, and then there's like some white and green detailing on up the thumb and like around this bit. This is just like the same pattern all the way around. I did do a white thumb just to kind of mimic the colour work that it had going on. The mitten turned out amazing, and I'm in love with it, and I've got a few memes that I've got to show you guys. The Bernie memes have been on point, so I'll show you guys at the end of the video if you want to see some top Bernie memes that I recreated. This isn't a tutorial in the fullest extent, but I am, if you did want to knit it, this is a nice video to follow along with the pattern. So like I said, free pattern in the description, check that out. For the materials, you'll be needing 4 different colours of yarn plus some scrap yarn for the tubular cast on. You will also need your needles, so I've got the Chiagoo set. I'm using the 5mm needles as I explained earlier. You'll also need some stitch markers and a tapestry needle. To do the tubular cast on, you'll need to use your scrap yarn and cast on with that scrap yarn half the number of stitches you need. You can use any cast on method. Here I'm just using the long tail cast on, and I am going to be casting on 18. So once I've got to 18, I then just start knitting the first row with, again, the scrap yarn. Now that the first row is done, you're going to be purling the next row, but you're going to be using your main colour. So I use this dark brown colour, and again I'm holding it double. So I'm just going to purl this row entirely with the dark brown. After the pearl row, you just want to knit the next row with, again, the dark brown colour. The next row is where it gets interesting. So now it's a purl row, and what you want to do is purl the first stitch, and then you want to find on the row where the dark brown and the scrap yarn connects, and you want to find the bottom loop of the dark brown colour, and then you want to put that up on the needle and then knit that. So again, I'll show you, you want to pick up the first loop, so that's making the knit stitch. It's a bit confusing, but once you get the hang of it, it's a bit easier. So again, you just want to completely do this until you get to the end of the row, and then on the last stitch, you want to purl it. It can be a bit difficult to pick these up, but just keep persevering. Having longer needle tips is very helpful, and it is going to be tough, so just hang in there, it will be worth it in the end. Now, as you can see, you've got all the stitches on the needle. There should be 35 stitches. You will need 36, but we'll add that on once we join it in the round. So now what I'm going to do is find the middle of these stitches, pull it through so I can start doing the magic loop, and then I'm going to place a stitch marker. Then I'm going to yarn over onto the right hand needle, and that will create the extra stitch you need. And then I'm just going to work around in 1 by 1 rib. Once you've worked a couple of rounds of 1 by 1 rib, you want to remove the scrap yarn. So I just tend to cut it quite close to where the last stitch you knit was, and then just start pulling it through. There's probably a much better way of doing this, because as you can see, it's a bit fiddly and a bit tricky, maybe using another needle to kind of get in there rather than my chunky fingers. And this is what hopefully it should look like. It's got a nice round curved edge, and there is a bit of a gap here where I did the yarn over in the join, but that's fine. I'll just use this tail to weave it in and make it look better later. And now you just want to work round in 1 by 1 rib until you've worked 12 rounds total. What I did is I made sure that the first tubular cast on, where you're picking up the stitches, that didn't count as a round. The round after that, where you joined in the round, is round 1. So you want to work 11 more rounds. And with the magic of editing, this turns into this. So that's 12 rounds, and now we're going to be moving on to the thumb gusset. For the thumb gusset, you're going to have a couple of setup rounds and then 3 repeating rounds. So round 1 is a setup round. You want to make one right straight after the stitch marker, and then you will be repeating knit 12 and then make one right a further 3 times, just so you increase the number of stitches that you have, just to make way for the palm of your hand. So as you can see here, I'm knitting and now I'm making one right, and then you just want to repeat these last 13 stitches. Row 2 is really simple. You just want to knit all of the stitches. I won't show you guys too much of me knitting this because you know how to do that. Row 3 is where you place the markers and you start to make room for the thumb. So I already had the beginning of round marker, so you want to make one right, knit one, and then you want to make one left. And then you'll be placing a marker immediately after this stitch. And that's going to signify where the thumb will be, and it kind of jolts out a bit to kind of make room for your thumb. And then the rest of the stitches you just knit until you get to the beginning of round marker. Moving on to the repeats, rows 4 and 5 are just knit. I'm not going to show you that, you know what it looks like. Row 6 is make one right, knit to marker, make one left, slip marker, and then knit to the beginning of round marker. So it's very simple. Start off by making one right, and then you want to knit all the stitches up to the second marker. Now you want to make one left. Again, this is just increasing the stitches for the thumb. And then after that, you just want to knit all the way around to the beginning of round marker, and that is the end of the 3 rounds of repeating. And you want to repeat this 4 times. Again, with the magic of editing, it will go from this to this, and then you're ready to split the thumb, which is what I'm going to do now. So you want your scrap yarn, thread the tapestry needle, and then you want to slip all the stitches between the 2 stitch markers for the thumb onto the scrap yarn, or stitch holder if you have a stitch holder. I don't, so I just use the same scrap yarn that I used to cast on. Now this second marker is now going to be the new beginning of round marker. So you just want to kind of move that scrap yarn out of the way, slip the marker, and then start knitting in the round so that it separates the thumb from the rest of the fingers. Now we move on to the exciting bit, the bit where it really turns into the iconic mittens, which is the colour work. Now I'm trying out this new kind of technique to hold the yarn strands. As you can see, it's a little bit awkward and I'm not fully comfortable with it, but we're making progress. So I'm just following the chart that is on the downloadable pattern in the description. And here's a quick little time lapse of me knitting it because you don't want to see the entire thing. It does taper towards the top, and then after that you do the Kitchener stitch to join it all together. So to do the Kitchener stitch, it's very easy. It's a bit fiddly, but it's quite nice. So what I'm doing here is measuring out some tail of the yarn to cut, and now I'm just threading the needle. And so to do the Kitchener stitch, you need to have the stitches on 2 separate needles, and to set up, on the needle closest to you, you put the tapestry needle in purlwise, and then the needle furthest from you, you want to put the tapestry needle in through the stitch knitwise, and they both stay on the needle. Now we go into a repeating pattern of the one closest to you, you put the tapestry needle in knitwise, pull it off the needle, and then the next stitch you put the tapestry needle in purlwise and leave it on the needle. And then on the one back you put the needle in purlwise and take it off the needle, and then the next stitch on that needle you want to put the tapestry needle through knitwise and leave it on the needle. And then you just repeat knitwise off the needle, purlwise on the needle, purlwise off the needle, and then knitwise on the needle, and that's what you get. Now that I'm finished with the main bulk of the mitten, we move on to the thumb. So what you want to do is you want to take the knot out of your scrap yarn that's holding all the stitches, and you just want to put all the stitches onto your circular needles. Again, I'm using the same needles, and halfway through the stitches you do want to kind of pull it through so you can do magic loop. And then once you've got all of the stitches that you were holding on the needles, pull that scrap yarn out, and you're ready to pick up 2 extra stitches just at the main body of the glove, the mitten, just so there's no hole there. And as I mentioned, I'm doing the thumb in white just to mimic Bernie's mitten that little bit more than this pattern called for. So I'm just going to be picking up 2 stitches, and I kind of just found where there are natural little holes. I'm not sure if that's right, I've never knit a mitten before, but so I used the pick up and knit method. Then I placed a stitch marker to signify the beginning of the round, and you just want to start knitting in the round until you get to a length that is slightly above the tip of your thumb. However, for this first round I decided to do something a little bit funky, and so I'd knit 1 stitch and then slip another, because I felt like that would give a bit of interesting change between the brown and the white, just so it's not like a block line and it looks a bit mismatched. I don't know what you guys think, how you think it turned out, but I'm pretty happy with it. And then from then you just want to knit all the stitches. I ended up doing about 16 rounds before I started to close the thumb off. I completely forgot to film the process of me finishing off the thumb, but all I did was finish knitting these 16 rounds, and then I did 1 round of knit 1, knit 2 together, and then after that I then knit 2 together on every 2 stitches, and then just pulled the yarn through that and then weaved in the end. So this is what it looks like with the cute little white thumb and all the colour work. I think it looks amazing. Now, just to stretch out that colour work a bit and make the stitches a bit more even, I decided to block the mittens because I'm not great with my colour work tension, so all I'm doing is filling up my sink with some soak blocking stuff and then just putting my mitten into warm water, leaving that to soak for about 15 minutes, and then I just laid it on a mat and pinned it out until I was happy with the shape, and hopefully, as you'll see, evened out the stitches a bit more so it looked a bit more like I know what I'm doing. And now that it's all blocked and the ends are weaved in, just look how pretty these floats are. And now enjoy some homegrown memes. The Bernie mittens. I am very happy with how these turned out. As I mentioned, there were some amendments that I made, and I hope you enjoyed the little snowy scene that you guys had to show off the mittens. There was a bit of snow yesterday, and we managed to get some really nice pictures out when it was at its heaviest, so that was good. It's now more like sludge and ice, so definitely made the right decision in taking the pictures and the videos yesterday. If you liked this video and you found it useful to kind of see the techniques along with the pattern, then do give this video a like and comment to tell me how yours is going, what you decided to do for your mittens, or what colours you plan to do for your mittens. If you want to support this channel and make it so that I can keep doing these videos for you guys, then do head on over to my Patreon, patreon.com/SmikleGoesKnitting. Over there you get loads of different benefits, there's loads of different tiers, so if you can only afford like kind of £2 a month, that's absolutely fine. There are some higher tiered ones, but you get the basic shout outs and access to my Patreon only Discord where we chat semi-frequently, just so we can hang out. I can give any knitting advice that you may want. So yeah, check out my Patreon if you're interested in that. Big thank you to my two current patrons, Gillian and Georgia. Very lovely. We are going to be planning our knit night soon, so if you do want to get in on that monthly knit night, then do head on over to my Patreon and check it out. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the pattern to knit this along with the colour work chart is down in the description, so if you wanted to knit your own Bernie mittens, I should be wearing both of them but I'm not. If you want to wear your own make your own Bernie mittens, then go get the pattern from descriptions. It's very well done. I'm very happy with it. Al is an amazing designer for how long she's been designing, so yeah, go check that out, go give her some love, and go get your Bernie mittens. That's all from me this week. I hope you enjoyed the video. Stay wholesome and happy knitting.